Welcome to Design Muse Podcast, a podcast meant to inspire, educate, and advocate on all things commercial interior design. I am your co-host, Bridget Santos.
And I'm Melanie Hanna.
We are Design Muse Podcast.
Before we get started today, we want to give a huge shout out to our Design Muse sponsor, Tarkett. Tarkett offers an extensive range of commercial flooring products, including carpet, resilient, and accessories. Tarkett's holistic approach to sustainability is woven in the fabric of how they do business and sits at the heart of their day-to-day design decisions. Tarkett offers you the best and widest range of flooring and wall solutions for all segments and areas, from healthcare and educational facilities to retail, hospitality, senior living, and workplace. Thank you again to our sponsor, Tarkett.
Welcome back to all of our listeners to Design Muse Podcast. We are so excited today to have an amazing person come on and a serial collaborator, which we love here at Design Muse Podcast. We have Angel Gonzales, and we are so excited to kick off the conversation today.
All right, welcome, Angel.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
We are so excited to have you. So to start off the conversation today, we always like to do something a little fun and just to kind of get the conversation going. Today, we're going to be talking about your journey and your role and what inspires you, education and advocacy. We're going to start off this conversation with, we asked your coworkers and some people that know you to describe you.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's all amazing. So.
Of course it is. Duh. All right. So the first one, which I thought was really cool. So no one gave me just a one-word descriptor of you, by the way. They always added like a beautiful word in front of it. All right.
Yes.
So the first one is wonderful, resourceful. That goes with your role.
Yes.
But wonderfully is, I mean, that's a good descriptor
Yes.
word, right? This must be a designer, right? Champion of sustainability,
Yes, that's very true.
which you're very known for nationwide.
Yes.
An advocate for integrity of materials.
Yes. Huge part of my role.
Always selfless and always looking to make an impact.
Yes. I'm always trying to find places where I can insert myself to help because it really helps elevate everyone, right? So we're always part of a team at Gensler, and it's not just one designer creating a project. So, it's always a team. Everyone, all hands on deck. That's what we say.
It's a beautiful thing. What we do as designers, there's so many people involved in it. And at the end of the day, at that project opening, I was actually at one of your project openings recently at Savills. That's where we ran into each other.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think about how many people are involved in one project, from the design team to the rendering team to the sustainability efforts, resource materials, down to consultants, MEP, structural. The list goes on, right?
Yeah.
Landscape,
Yeah.
architects,
Yes.
designers, the whole kit and caboodle, right? So a lot of people make a project, and it's that beautiful collaboration. So let's dive into a little bit more of the conversation of specifically about your role.
So my role is very interesting. From being in the industry now 14 years, I understand not every firm has this role, which I'm very appreciative of Gensler for allowing us to have this role, right? And allowing me to be in that role. My role is unique because my day-to-day is working with a lot of brands, and that's like my main task for most of the days is to work with the brands that are coming in that are wanting to showcase their new product in the hopes that designers will feel inspired and place those products on their project, correct? So design is design, but it's also a business, right? And we're all trying to, just be part of it. I always tell people, I'm like, by the end of the day, I really don't want to speak to anyone
Right.
by the end of the week, because I literally have been speaking nonstop throughout the day with my colleagues, figuring out in the background what's working, what's not working, what do you guys want to see, what have you not seen, messages nonstop. My teams is always constantly blowing up. It could be a new younger designer that's coming in saying, I need your help showing me what a countertop is or what product I should use for this. But then you also have like senior leadership that wants to know like, hey, do you have a contact for this company? Because we need to reach out for this reason or that reason. So that's all internal, obviously. And then we also have our appointments when all the manufacturer and brands, like you guys obviously are designers as well. So, how many people could be knocking on your door every day wanting to come in and show their product. It's funny. I think a lot of people call us gatekeepers is the word that everyone uses. Anyone who has that role at any firm is called a gatekeeper. I don't necessarily like that term. It does apply a little bit, but I would see us more as liaisons, right? Or when anyone who's not in the industry asks me exactly how would I equate your role in another field, it's more of like I worked in fashion a long time, so also it's almost like equating us to like a buyer, I would say. Yeah.
Right. So you're working internally and externally, and you're
Yes.
representing your team, you're representing Gensler's brand overall too, and a very important part of it is your sustainability efforts. So how do you filter in and filter out what was appropriate for projects versus not from a sustainability standpoint?
As we all know, products have a lot of different metrics that they have to meet. I always say sustainability is everyone should be doing sustainability, but it's not what oohs and ahs everyone about a product. Let's just be honest. So I always say typically when new products come in, the performance is very important. Aesthetics is very important. Sustainability also is very important. Once brands come in and introduce the products to you, you get into a rhythm of what you're asking for because you also know what your designers are seeking, especially with the type of projects we do. We're very lucky that we have a massive portfolio of projects from mixed use to corporate to professional services. Our thing is when a product first comes in through the door, it's always how does it perform? How new is it? Are we the first ones to see it? Because that also excites people. And then also sometimes we do ask for pricing, which is not the most glamorous thing, but we need to know where it falls under that. And then now with sustainability, the firm has done an amazing job of creating a pathway for all the resource directors like myself across the firm and librarians to make sure that we are filtering out products that do not meet our sustainability requirements, which we call GPS, which stands for Gensler Product Sustainability Standards.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys have always been on the forefront of that. So I don't know if you remember, but we met several years ago, and it was actually at a Metropolis event about sustainability. And I don't think I knew you yet, but I knew who you were. And when you were talking so passionately at this event, it was a roundtable event. I remember you passionately talking about sustainability, and I thought, man, I want to know him because he's so passionate about this.
Yeah.
There's so much to it. And it gets so technical sometimes. And I just remember the whole conversation. It was incredible, brilliant people in the room. And it was so inspiring. And after that whole roundtable, I actually became a lot more interested and started asking more questions. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
On the avocation side of it, for sure.
And as being the resource director of the South Central region for Gensler, tell us a little bit about what inspired you to go down that path, kind of where you came from, what your design past has been, education, all of that, and tell us how you got to where you are today.
I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas, but I was actually raised in Red Oak, Texas, a town of like 5,000 people. Went there from pre-K to high school, graduated, and then went to Dallas College here locally. I would say like around 18, 19, when you're trying to figure out what your major is going to be, what you're going to do in life or whatever. I was that person that's like, I cannot be in a classroom. I don't want to sit here. This is not for me. Like I'll stay and do online coursing, but I also, if I'm not going to stay in school, I need to go out there and just start building a career. I was very fortunate. I've always been a hustler with a lot of things. So I worked for Health and Human Services. So that taught me to work with all walks of life. I also from there worked at Children's Medical Center for a long time. So I worked with children that were going through a lot of hardships and families. So that taught me another layer of compassion for people. Within that time, I always kept a full-time job, but I always want to stay busy. And those roles were always clock in, clock out. You know, what do I do with my time afterwards? Because by that point, I had moved to Dallas permanently. I ended up telling myself, I just need to find a retail job. What do I like to do? I like shopping. I'm going to go find a retail job. So I found a job at Gap at Mockingbird Station at the time. I was dressing the mannequins, doing the windows. And you guys will laugh when I say this. What was going on when I decided to work there? It was
That was a terrible year.
Yes.
Terrible. I started in the industry 2007 and was a hospitality designer. And we just thought we were like, nothing could touch us. You know, we were gold leafing stuff.
Yeah. You're like funds or,
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone in the economy thought funds were unlimited, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in 2009, Venetian went bankrupt. They were our client. And I always joke that I wish I would have bought stock. I was too young and dumb then. It was one of those things. It was definitely a hard time. And I think a lot of people were grasping at different careers at that point in time. I was.
And then, so what was going on then was who was all in the retail market working with me? It was all designers and architects, and they were working with me there. And I just remember asking everyone, "You're a designer, you're an architect. What are you doing here?" Right? I'm like, they asked me the same thing, like, "What are you doing here?" Right? I started hanging out with them. They started inviting me to their house parties. I was meeting people here and there, and I met Koi Hong, who at the time was working with everyone at Callison, RTKL. He, at the time, went to go work for Perkins Oil, and he goes, "Hey, so everything is getting a little bit better. Hiring is going back on. There's a position, we call it a librarian. Would you consider it?" And I said, "No, I'm good. I work in healthcare. I'm going to stay on my side over here." And he goes, "No, I think you should really do it." So I went to the interview. Of course, they were like, "You're great. When can you start?" So my first day, they threw me in the library and they were like, organize this and then help us schedule people to come in. And I could have easily stayed just doing that, from day to day. But I told myself, I'm like, there has to be more, like I had to be more engaged. I was trying to learn and educate myself more as to like what you guys all do, right? So I could be a better help. And I would see palettes laid out and I would walk by. Some of the designers hated me for this, but I would walk by and it's like, "You're choosing that? Like, I wouldn't do that."
I love that.
And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, it looks off. I go, "Let's try this." They started allowing me to help them with their finished palettes as well, on top of the other responsibilities I had, getting all the manufacturers coming in and such like that. So that's where I started there. And then, of course, some of my colleagues moved to Gensler at the time, and an opening came up. And they tried convincing me, and I felt very loyal at the time to my previous firm because they gave me an opportunity. They opened the door to this amazing industry that I love. But I had to sit down realistically and tell myself, if I'm going to make this my career, when am I going to have the opportunity to have two of the largest firms on my resume, right? So I'm going to try it. I went to Gensler. I love it. I've been there 8 years now. It's elevated me to a whole other level. I went from starting without a title, quickly moved my way up to associate, and then within so many years later was given the title of senior associate as well.
That's amazing. I love how much you talk about the connections within the industry and working with people. And you talk so much, not necessarily about what people are doing or the products or anything. You're working with people, right?
Yeah.
You're a people person. You're inserting yourself. You're trying to better everybody on the team, which is so neat. And part of that is pushing that boundary of innovation. So
Yeah.
how do you insert yourself into those projects with the designers and really push the boundaries of innovation?
Through all my years of experience, what I've really noticed that designers want to have a space where they feel comfortable to come into and actually collaborate with someone that has that knowledge or can support them, because I think sometimes you are stuck in a silo looking at your project and you're like, I need another set of eyes. And that's, I feel like, where I like to come in.
I love that.
But the part of that is having an organized library, having an organized space. I think a lot of firms don't realize how important that is, that you have an organized space for your designers to come in, see everything laid out, and then also have someone that can be an expert and help them in that, because that saves up so much time and it gives them a level of confidence. Sometimes you have the younger designer, it's their first month and they come in, they don't know what they're doing. Sometimes they were told to pull this and you can see it in their eyes that they're just a little bit lost. And that's where I think it's very beneficial to have someone like myself or anyone that you assign to that role to want to help people and actually care about not just, getting a project done so you can get paid, but also actually wanting to grow that designer and give them that knowledge and sharing, because once they have that knowledge, you can move on to the next person.
I have a question for you. Designers, we're hoarders. It's terrible.
Yeah.
We will literally put a palette out
Yeah.
and leave it there for an entire month.
Yeah.
I have a palette pinned up in one of our conference rooms because I ran out of space somewhere else. It's probably been there for 2 weeks. I should probably take it down. But the thing is we sometimes run out of space because these projects are so big sometimes and you need all the room. How do you guys organize yourself? Because I think a lot of designers struggle with that. So what are your policies at Gensler, and how do you help designers be able to quickly pull something from their palette, whether it's in the design phase or the CA phase, but still give them enough space?
It is basically a checks and balances, right?
Right.
If you are monitoring what's going on in your space, which for me, it's the library, you have an idea of who's actually touching their palettes and who's actually coming back and saying that they need the space. So for us, we have rules like you can only leave your palette for 2 weeks. It has to be labeled with the designer's name, the DM or design manager's name as well. So we know that if this designer gets put on a different project, you know how it always is. I'm no longer on that project. Let's go hunt down the next person. I always tell people, it's like, I'm nosy, but I go and seek out who that is and have a nice conversation with them. They
Right.
joke internally. I'll walk up to them like, hey, I need to speak with you. I'm like, am I in trouble? I don't get people in trouble. I just am kindly asking you, hey, your pilot's been here for a minute. I think it's just setting rules. We have a
Yeah.
whole handbook for the library saying, these are the dedicated layout spaces. This is a form that you need to complete. It has, obviously, it's not just that. It also has other resources. This is how you can contact your reps, how you can use our internal databases, such as our sustainability standards, because those are also kept in a database that only Gensler has access to. Going back to your question, it does take having a dedicated person that will actually follow up. And I think that's where I tell people all the time is that everyone should have a librarian or a resource director. It has to happen. They have to be at your firm, employed with your firm, because it encourages them to be even more invested in the projects. If you're not in the office, as I'm in the office 5 days a week, period.
Mhm.
There's no remote working because I have to be amongst everyone to be able to actually keep track of everything.
Says a lot about the person that you are, that designers and everybody feels so comfortable with working with you and going to you as that second eye. For us designers, it takes a lot to kind of just, okay, I don't know what's going on right now, but I need a second set of eyes and I need to bring somebody in. And it
Yeah.
says a lot about your ability to be a team member, collaborate, and really push the boundaries to help a project as a whole. And we talk about collaboration a ton here at Design Muse, and just the fact that you go in and push the boundaries and be able to collaborate more. It's just, it's amazing.
And I also am very fortunate that our leadership here has trusted me with clients as well. So there's times where a client needs a rug, a client needs a new backsplash, and there's really not much that's going to be done. And they're like, Angel, you can handle this. You can go speak with the client. I'm very fortunate that I can connect with people very well. And I've been very fortunate that clients really like me, I would say.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so another thing you said earlier about helping, you saw a need and you filled that need and being able to speak out. I think a lot of people are scared to say something, and so they just let things go. But a lot of times when you speak up and you're bold and brave, those are the opportunities to create something new and innovate and be able to create that role that you didn't even know you needed.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. And the one thing I do love about us too is we don't really, we're such a large office. We're 200 plus people, right? To me, that's a large office. And there's so many moving parts, but at the end of the day, the projects need to be innovative, but they also need to be built and done on time. And we all have hours and fees and such. So I always like to connect with everyone across the board to have an understanding of what is the need that you need from me at this moment, where we can help and get you started and then, or wrap it up.
That kind of tees into another question we have for you is about collaboration. What does a good collaboration look like to you?
A good collaboration for me is basically everybody on the team communicating at the same time, same speed. I love the person that is able to take on one portion of the project. And if one of their major contributions is to keeping a list of everything that needs to be done and keeping us all in order, that's great. There's also the person, sometimes it's even I'm helping, rarely, but I do sometimes if we have a tough deadline, helping pull the palette as well, or starting palette, and then we dwindle it down from there. So I think collaboration just means everyone willing to take on a portion of the project, but also making sure that you're communicating and following up to make sure that, we're not missing anything or something where none of us are dropping the ball, basically.
Communication's the key to everything. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when there's conflicts, a lot of times the root cause of it is communication. But it's part of it.
I'm glad you're saying that right now, because I always find this is just a very interesting thing that I always find with certain generations. Phone calls are not a thing. Picking up the phone is not a thing, right? So I always laugh because I tell people, sometimes I wow people by the fact that I just got something done because I made the phone call. They're like, how did you get the brand to, make sure they ship this on time and this and that? I picked up the phone and called the person.
That is such a true thing to say, because there are so many designers or people in the industry that are afraid to pick up the phone and call. Yeah. And sometimes things don't come across the right way on Teams or on, email or whatever it is. But we need that personal relationship with who we're working with. And it kind of goes back to, you're working with people. We all have the same goal in mind for the project. And whatever you can insert yourself and be the best help at, that's the best. And communication. And I'm always a proponent of just pick up the phone and call. You never know.
And hearing somebody's voice is a lot different than just a Teams message or an email. And you're able to be a little bit more empathetic towards people's communication styles, because that's a huge thing. I'm taking a class at SMU right now. It's just a certification, like 6-week class, and it's women in leadership. And I didn't know what to expect. So this first week, which was last week, was all about communication. It was also about intersectionality. Basically, it's the understanding of who you are as a person all the way around. So they give us this wheel, and we put our name in the middle. And then there's some things that's, it's obvious. It's like age, sex, ethnicity. But then you start to get into first generation college student. You get into artist, mom, podcaster, all the things, but all of that makes me uniquely me, but it impacts my communication style. It was really interesting to hear the professor talk about that and how all of us need something different. And a lot of times it's just about being empathetic to others and what they need. And so you talked about generations. It gets interesting because I have some that just want to Teams me and they want a list. Give me a list and I will check every single box, but I need that check box. So as a leader, I'm with my team, I'm very agile in my communication style with them, which I think that they appreciate. One just wants to know the deadline and that's it. Somebody else may be like, I need that in-person time with you. Yeah. And that's what's going to spark that creativity. And so I think bringing all those generations together and all those different backgrounds together is what makes a beautiful project. And that's what's so cool about our field, right?
Yeah. And I think you touched on being who you are and like being unique. I think being authentic. I know there's a lot of classes you can take to teach you to do this or that. I always, when I do those, I pick and choose a little bit of things that I do need help growing in,
right.
But also at the same time, I don't want to lose my sense of identity.
Yes.
Because I think, especially in the world that we're in right now, I think it's very important to, be proud of, who you are and what you stand for. You want to work with people that appreciate you. And then I consider myself a very nice person. I don't try to rock the boat or any of that, but also at the same time, I do love for there to be an awareness like that you feel seen in the room, right?
Yes,
it's like,
absolutely.
Right. When you know more about yourself and who you are and that authentic part of it, you can be a better team member. You can be a better collaborator. Know what you're bringing to the table, right? I mean, we can be the first ones to say, these are my pros and these are my cons. And that's a great thing to self-reflect and know about so that you can show up and be a better team member. What would you tell designers? Like, what would you want them to know about? What are some lessons learned that you've learned over all of your experience?
One thing that people laugh at this, but I think it's very appropriate for me. For young designers, when they get very intimidated when they're starting their finished palette, they call me over. It's like, hey, Angel, can you have a look at this? Like, think of it this way. Your palette, would you wear that out? And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, think of it. It's an outfit, right? Like, would you wear that out? Like, would you walk confidently in this if that was your outfit and you're walking onto Puma? You know what? I never thought of it that way. So be confident about what you're putting together, but then also not everyone's going to agree with you on it. So, this is a first pass. Be open to criticism. I had to learn to be open to criticism because when I first came into this industry, I thought people were mean. Let's be clear. I never went to design school or architectural school, but from what I've been told, you guys are always constantly being critiqued now sitting on the board of advisors for the University of Oklahoma as well. I go and work with students to mentor. And it's just be open to criticism. No one should be treating you in a negative way in any field, but at the same time, listen to what they have to say because when you're young and you think you're the coolest person on the planet and you're here to make changes, which you can, but you also have to play nice. That's just what it is.
And listening is key.
Yeah.
We taught a class for IIDA on presentations, and that was one of the biggest key points. We said, if you don't take anything else away, take away the fact that listening to your clients, your team. So it's not about having the best idea in the room. It's about helping everybody spark that creativity. And it may come from someone that's not even on the team. I like to bring outside people that's not on the team to be able to do a peer review so that they can see what is missing from the palette. And they can see that, hey, you know what? This one thing, this one little tweak, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? The what ifs are what creates the best project in the end. And one other thing I want to say that you mentioned about designers, a lot of people take it so personal, right? Yeah. So you put this palette together, you put this project together, and at the end of the day, when you are young, I even remember being like, oh my gosh, I took it so personal. Yeah. Why did I take it so personal? I was just so, oh my gosh, it was a dream crushing, is what I would call it. And at the end of the day, I think over time, you get the wisdom and knowledge and the understanding of what true collaboration is. We are not designing for us. Yeah. We're designing for the people that are going to be in those spaces, whatever their goal is, whether it's their return on investment, because this is their new headquarters and they want that client investment point, that wow factor. Or if you're in a hotel, it's about that first impression and the lasting impression, really. Yeah. And so every project has a different goal, and it's really about understanding and listening and collaborating.
Yeah. Another thing to add to that, it's reach out to people in your office, like your technical directors, right? Ask them about it. It's like, hey, I want to use this. It's a fairly new product. Have you ever used it before? Are there issues with it? But then if you don't have someone like me or like you, highly technical person at your firm or your smaller firm, it's amazing, and we all know this, how much our manufacturers know, right? If you call them in to talk with them through the product or what your goal is with the product, they can also guide you. They're great guides as to watch out for this, or no, I wouldn't use it on that. So I think it's one of those things, know where all the resources are is where I think when you're a young designer, you should really expand your horizons. Go to the vendor events, go when they come in and present. That's how I learned how things are created. I'm over here, people call me in and it's like, hey, this carpet, why is this a different price? And I'm like, oh, it's because of stitching. This has so many stitches per inches and stuff like that. So grow your knowledge, because I think that's what helped me get to where I am at this moment as well. And then I was able to add another layer, which is now sustainability, but also being confident in your product, because there's a lot of times where if you don't know how the product is created, if you are presenting to your client, they will ask you. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of times I've had success with clients when I'm meeting with them one-on-one or part of a team, is knowing exactly how that's made, because they'll throw out ideas, right? They'll say like, oh, I wish this had a little bit more like blue and this like stone. I'm like, that is being cut off from a mountain. It's coming off of a block, the whole mountain is done. And they're like, we'll call this other person. There's actually 4 families that ship into the US for marble. So they all own everything. So if you call this person, they're just going to call around. Getting to know how products are sourced, texture, the quality, it's just ever-growing knowledge. You're never going to master it, but just try to know as much as you can.
Right. Knowledge is power. Yeah. Right. And at the end of the day, it's okay not to know, and it's okay to continue educating yourself no matter what level of this industry that you're in. If you're a designer, if you're an owner, if you're a manager, if you're whatever it is, knowledge is power, and keep going and keep educating yourself. And it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to reach out to manufacturers and say, hey, I designed this, didn't realize it needed to be seamed together like this. Can you help me out? So it's okay to ask questions, and you're such a great resource for all of that.
And I always say materials to me are the fun portion of your role. So if you're not having fun with materials and pulling those, I hate to say it, but you probably should be assessing where you are and what you really want to do.
Maybe you have other pros.
Because it's like, to me, it's like, it is one of the most impactful parts of a project. Obviously, layouts, all that stuff, I don't get into those. I always joke that if I were given a blank slate, I would have like 50 cafes in one space and one office. So that's not my forte, but I always feel like materials to me is the fun part of a project.
It's the touch, it's the feel, it's the first impression.
It's what you wear.
It's what you wear. That analogy is so amazing. Yeah. It's a great point to make. Like, would you wear that out? And then you relook at the palette and you're like, maybe not.
I'm just laughing because we have a project in Austin, and it is like, we have 2 projects. They're across the street from each other. And one is a very tailored approach to Austin. The other one's a very retro approach to Austin. And we actually have poster children in our mural board. So it's like, one guy's like, he's dancing, there's records in the background. And the other one's like buttoned up in a blazer. And so they have a vibe, they have a persona, right? Which is very common when you're storytelling through design. So we've been using a lot of fashion images to be able to really get inspired by. Yesterday, I was with the team, and then all of a sudden I realized I was wearing this like robin egg beautiful blazer. And I had on leopard print shoes they're the Adidas with the orange shoestrings. And literally I was wearing the palette.
See, there you go.
Literally. And we were joking about it. So now I have a new phrase. They're going to be like, thank you, Angel.
Would you wear it? Would you?
Yeah.
But yes, actually, thank you.
Or you walk into 20-year-old space. I'm like, who wore this?
Right. Maybe the next thing we need to show up is like what not to wear, what to wear, right? By Angel.
And like I said, that's a very small portion of everything. Going back to collaboration, though, Another thing that I've learned in my career is, especially with helping with materials and such, or even figuring out what we're actually going to stock in the library, because we always have to remind our brands that we have limited space. I rely a lot on the design directors as well. They have, a lot of them, especially at Gensler, have taught me constraint on some of the finishes, which is great. So, I mean, there's learning opportunities everywhere, right? I remember at the very beginning of my career when I would help with palettes, I would pull a lot of color. And then I had one design director that would ask me, why do you add so much color? Like had reflected upon myself, like I was very lucky that coming from a Latino family, we love color. You can't get away with it. You've like the town that like families from Mexico, every house is painted a different color. So what you're exposed to in your youth also starts to bleed into that. So I learned some constraint on that.
And that's what makes you you. That's what makes you authentically, uniquely you.
Yeah.
And I love that.
That is so cool. I want to touch on the sustainability efforts that you guys have at Gensler. You guys are known nationwide for it, worldwide, I would say. So just curious, can you touch on some of that sustainability efforts that you guys have?
The biggest portion I'm involved in is GPS, which is a Gensler Product Sustainability Standards, because of all the materials that I help source. But that really started because Diane, one of our global CEOs now, we were the only firm, or probably are the only firm, that is on the UN Council for Climate Action. And we were called out, you guys being the largest firm, what are you guys doing for the environment? And she just kind of came back to us and said, to all of us at the firm, and said, what are we doing, right? So it was part of our GC3 goals. And then from there, GPS is an off branch from that. GPS is amazing as to what it has become. It didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by itself. It is a massive team at Gensler. What we do amazing at Gensler is every librarian is connected. We're on a Teams chat every day saying, this product is having an issue, or my designer's looking for this. Can you let me know? We are crowdsourcing nonstop. So they also entrusted us, a GPS team, saying, you guys are the first line defense, if that's the word you want to use, right? So the first people manufacturers see, so we're going to rely on you guys to help educate them what our policy is. We didn't just make it out of thin air either. We studied the brands and the categories. Right now it's 18 categories, and we're addressing 5 areas of impact. There's several within that. We were getting a lot of feedback from manufacturers and a lot of pushback. And I think everybody was getting pushback because I went to Gensler, New York. They said that they needed this. I went to Gensler, Dallas. They said they needed this, right? We created a website basically saying, this is our policy, this is our stance. If you fall under this category, because these are the highest used products, you have to fall to comply with this category. And we set a standard. But within that, we actually studied every product. We called on companies, boutique, medium, large, and said, okay, textile companies, where are you on this? Let's set realistic metrics and get you all to a starting point, and then we can grow from there. So, that only had several products. I think it had the biggest one we tackled there, one of the biggest ones was carpet tile. So we set all those metrics. It was amazing because we had to tell brands, you're not meeting our standards, you can no longer be on our shelves.
Which makes a huge impact across the board, because then it sets a standard. Well, if I can't meet Gensler's standards, I'm not in the door.
It betters them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you guys are working that way where, okay, now you're starting to get into, we need these manufacturers to be at a certain level. And of course, those manufacturers want to be at that level for Gensler, right?
Yeah.
So you're working backwards and bettering them.
Yeah. And that's why we didn't just make up the policy and said, this is what you have to have, right? Like we studied everyone and said, okay, this should be what we have found based off interviewing all the brands that should be attainable. This is a starting point. That's why it's just a standard, right? We also have a market differentiator because we understand certain brands are going above and beyond. So those are also highlighted within our database. It's an internal database that we only keep because we gather all that data ourselves. But it was amazing with the Carpet Tile version 1 because we had I wanted to say 3 brands that couldn't comply. Within a year or less, they had totally changed their factories, sourced new nylons. So we were able to push them in that industry, or guide them, I should say. There's some confusion sometimes. They're like, oh, we're being left out. We keep the conversation going, even if brands don't comply, because our goal is not to exclude anyone. Our goal is just for everyone in the industry to be transparent. Also, we want to gather that data to make it easier for our designers, because our designers are already doing so much. The last thing they want to think about is if that product is sustainable or not. Some of them do, some of them don't, let's be honest, right? But them being able to confidently go into our library and say, I'm pulling this carpet and it meets our standards, it's one less thing that they have to worry about. It's all about being transparent, but also manufacturers being transparent with us and us being transparent with the manufacturers.
You guys are on the forefront of everything, and we appreciate it. Being from different firms and seeing the innovation from an outsider's perspective is really incredible. And I think everybody everybody plays a part in that, and we all do, right? And when you start to challenge the norm, we talked about this in our last episode about challenging. And challenging is a negative connotation sometimes, but it's all about, again, going back to collaboration and listening and being able to get that best product out there, setting a standard and having other manufacturers be able to try to get to that. You're moving the bar. And you're moving the bar not just today, but tomorrow, the next years, 10 years, 100 years. And so it's really cool to see that innovation.
And I think that's where our role as resource directors across the firm has really evolved, because we're all hands on deck now. So we split up categories. I had textile and wall covering for a while. And then, some of our sustainability leaders are helping in other portions of it. So now I'm the manufacturer liaison for all the categories. So whenever a company wants to be onboarded or has questions, obviously I'm not the one setting the standard, but I schedule the meetings, meet with them, guide them through the process. Sometimes some of our heads of sustainability also get on the calls because there are some very technical questions, and we want to hear from brands saying like, this is something that we're having an issue meeting, but where can we meet you guys halfway on this? Or not halfway, but are there other certificates that you are willing to, how do you say it, accept? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we're learning along the way as well. But I think we've got it to a science now of what our process is, internally and externally.
And where are you educating yourself on all of this? Where are you thinking forward of what sustainability needs to be in 5, 10, 15 years? What are your resources that you can tell you're so passionate about it? Like, where are you deep diving into those resources?
It's really the categories are set by our heads of sustainability across the firm. A lot of them sit out of New York. We started out from the highest, most specified products across the firm, which, for example, who doesn't specify carpet tile, right? So from there, once we've gotten those categories down and kind of filtered everyone, then we start pulling metrics and then jump onto the next categories. And then within that, we're sometimes even a year before talking about what categories do we want to tackle next. Like we were thinking about potentially quartz and solid surface. We decided that wasn't going to be part of this version. We have so many people that actually want to be part of GPS. It's good to see how excited people are about it. Obviously, because of who we are and how many products we specify, I kind of go back to I was on a panel with Cradle to Cradle, and they were saying that they ran metrics on us. I joked that they were stalking us.
They probably were, right?
And they go, so we ran metrics, which I found fascinating, based off how many designers you have and based off how much you specify per year, because we don't purchase for our clients, but we specify. Each one of your designers on a bad year has an $18 million buying power. On a good year, which you guys always typically have, it's $54 million. So the fact that those metrics are being run and that we have that influence also helps us with brands to have a little bit more leverage as to getting them to actually engage with us about sustainability.
Last question I have on sustainability is, what would you say out there to clients that are not thinking of sustainability?
Yeah. Well, luckily for them, if they're working with Gensler, it's already embedded in our projects. It's actually embedded into our specs as well. So it's not products that we typically wouldn't use. It's just something that it doesn't cost them anything because it's not a certification. It's just more for our designers to be able to easily select the best of the best that's out there when it comes to sustainability. So we're very clear that it's not a certification. There was a lot of confusion at the beginning saying, oh, now you're competing with LEED or competing with all this. That's not our goal. Our GPS also follows the common material framework area. So we don't get a lot of pushback from clients unless they have a standard, right? But even then, we're like, you're our client. We're going to use what you tell us to use. But luckily, a lot of the new products meet. It'd be no different than like if a product has technical issues, but your client insists on using it. There's ways around that. But I think a lot of our clients are responding very well to our sustainability goals, only because now they know that we're not charging them extra for it, basically.
Talked a lot about sustainability. I'm curious about WELL. Do you guys have WELL considerations?
Yes. So with the Common Materials Framework, it addresses WELL, LEED, BIFMA, all those categories as well. So with sustainability, we have 5 areas of impact. One of them being material transparency, which is what is in the product, right? Like what chemicals are in there. We actually set a metric that you have to disclose 75% minimum at 1,000 per million, which means you have to let us know the percentage. A lot of companies, we get it. It's their secret product, so they don't want to disclose. You can undisclose up to 25%, and that's where we're going to meet you at, right? If you don't have an HPD, we give them the option to do a self-disclosure form because that is their way of taking responsibility of what's actually in the product. So they write a letterhead saying this is what's in our product. We keep it internally. We don't share it with anyone. Our main goal is to push the industry to be transparent. We let them know, thank you for providing this to us. We really wish you would push this out to the rest of the industry. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes we've had brands that are like, you know what? Thank you for letting us know. We're not publishing all that on our website so designers can download. The other one is like VOC admissions, right? So that one's a very common one. We get some pushback on that, but it's not a big issue. Our carbon impact, right? That's one of the biggest impacts we want to have with GPS. And that was, how can we push brands to actually give us metrics? And one of them being the EPD, which is the environmental product declaration. We don't necessarily have a requirement in certain categories for that because we understand that group or that category is not there yet. Like for instance, textiles, we don't require one in the Gensler standard, which is a baseline, but we do require it in a market differentiator, which means on the list when designers are looking and selecting, if they want to select the most sustainable, they would probably look at a market differentiator versus a Gensler standard. We also want to make sure that we recognize companies for what they're doing for the social impact as well, or do they have the AI materials pledge signed and such like that. So we want to reward everyone, and we want to be, everyone to highlight what they're doing, and we want sustainability to grow. So,
I love that. Thank you guys for doing that. We need firms like that are passionate, that can push all that forward. We've talked about our pillars. We've inspire, educate, advocate is Design Muse's third pillar. We always like to ask, if you could have all the resources in the world, what would you do to make an impact in our industry?
Well, I already think I'm making an impact with GPS.
Oh, you are. This is a hard question.
Yeah, no.
It could be personal too,
I get to travel to different trade shows all over, and I learned so much from getting to know the designers, getting to know the heads of brands and stuff like that, or not even just the heads of brands, but just, their person showing me their product in their showroom. If I could advocate for anything with designers, would be for them to be able to travel and explore more and get to, because I love materials. That's my career, right? Going to factory visits, going to all that. I've learned so much. That's how I can confidently walk into a meeting and tell a client that the product they might be selecting might not be the best, or it is the best because of how it's created. That does actually have a lot of influence when the client knows, oh, you actually were in the factory and you saw how my stuff was made, right? And sometimes that doesn't happen, and I get it. Why? Because it costs money. It's not always offered to everyone. But if there was an unlimited budget, I would send all the designers to travel the world and look at everything and how everything's made, because it's fascinating. Like tanneries are fascinating, how the mountains being, the blocks are coming out, how those are created and laid out, the textiles, how they're being spun, and even how something's powder coated. It's just all fascinating.
It is, and it has a great impact on how you think as a designer. I went to Italy in September, and it was funny. Yesterday, I was on a call with a client who said, okay, we're going to have this indoor-outdoor bar in this courtyard, and how are we going to activate it, and how are we going to do something so cool that maybe somebody hasn't done in this sector? And I said, oh my goodness, you need Florence wine windows. Everybody stopped in the tracks and they're like, what is a Florence wine window? I said, oh my goodness, let me send you a picture. I will send you a video of me ringing the bell and getting my rosé.
Yes.
And so it's creating and crafting a memory, and it was all from experience. I never would have popped in my head if I didn't go ring the little bell and get the little window to grab my wine. At the end of the day, as designers, it's our job to be able to take all those shared experiences, whether it's travel or that factory tour, and be able to educate everyone around us and pass it on to others. That's what's really cool about it. It's just everyone's shared knowledge in the industry. But I do agree. I don't think enough designers get those opportunities to go. When there are opportunities come up, I'm really big about advocating. One of the things that we are big on is making sure that we're connecting across offices. So we will actually send a designer from Dallas, Chicago, DC, Minneapolis, so that they can get to know each other too, because that camaraderie and that connection, you talked about it with your counterparts, is so important and impactful. And it just makes the design so much better.
I think going back to universities and actually walking students through like what the day looks like as for a designer. Every semester, I go and lecture about materials. So I bring in a cart full of materials and I walk them through like almost the basics of everything from acoustics to textiles to how things are made and created. And I think just advocating with young designers too and getting them excited.
And that's our future, right? Is who's in school right now and who's coming out. And that's how you push sustainability and knowledge of materials for the next generation coming up. So getting back into those universities and schools. I love going to my alma mater. I talk to the students all the time. huge passion of mine, but I think that's kind of hits the nail on the head with what are you doing for the future of sustainability? And that's educating the people who are going to be the future.
With that said, we have a secret we're going to share.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, ready. I'm ready. Share away.
Okay. Bridget and I are planning our entire lineup for this year. And one of the things that we're going to do after summer internships is we are going to have interns apply to come at the end of their internship. We're going to select 2 interns, summer interns, to share what they learned for the summer. And so these could be from any firm.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hear from those young up and coming designers. Yeah. And it's so intriguing to me how they think and how they communicate, how they operate or how they don't. And so it's just really interesting. So we want to take that advocacy part and be able to celebrate them and celebrate what they learned. Angel, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, your knowledge, and shared passion. It literally, I can feel it just coming off of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so all those wonderful things that everybody said about you that we talked about in the beginning, right on.
Send me the names of the people that said. I'm joking.
I told them it was anonymous. I'm going to bring them some cookies.
Yeah. Thank you so much, though.
Course,
I mean,
yes.
I think your role and how you became to your role is such an amazing advocacy for the industry, for anybody listening and understanding what this industry has to hold. And your connections with people are just so apparent. And we thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and everything that you've brought to the table today.
Of course. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for thinking of me. I never thought of myself as a muse, but now I'm going to tell people I'm a muse.
You are a muse.
We're going to have some merch come out soon.
Yeah.
We'll make sure you get
They're going to say, you're amusing.
I love that.
Well, thank you. Until next time, toodaloos.